Hello and welcome back to the Hearthstone Global Games, where I've replaced Raven one more time for the final game today, Russia versus Austria. Now, I know you've had a few things to say about Russia over the course of Hearthstone Global Games, haven't you, Subtle?
Makes it sound like I'm trash-talking them. I love Russia. I think they're the best team in this competition. It's why I picked them. It's why they are currently 2-0, and it's why they're my choice to go all the way. And I would like to say, Falcone, in regards to your intro, that you may be able to replace Raven in the chair, but you can never replace Raven in my heart.
That's really, really deep. Anyways, back to Russia. Stanadachi, I know, is one of your favorite players of all time.
Yes.
Pavel, Silvername, I know. All great players. They're a very, very high tier when it comes to the Hearthstone Global Games.
Yeah, you hear the word champion thrown about a lot when you start describing the Russian team. Pavel, of course, our current world champion, still reigning and defending. Stan Udachi, our current winter global champion. Inna was the runner-up to Tice when he became the champion in summer. And Silvername is the champion of Russian streamers, just to be able to shoehorn him in to fit the theme. But it's another point I've made where if your supposed weak link is Silvername, a man that does have a major second place to his name at IEM Katowice, then you're doing pretty well as a nation.
Yeah, right. Well, it's easy to follow the theme of the Hearthstone Global Games and say, well, Silvername's the streamer of the team. He's the popular one, the one that's not the player. But that's not entirely true. He's also a very, very good player. Looking on the other side of things, there is a solid team. We've got Wife Coach, Game King, Johnny Stone, and Zygenteig. 4 great players, but are they quite Russia-level great?
It's a good question, and I have no qualms about saying probably not overall. I think, Game King is quite possibly the most accomplished player. Wife Coach now, of course, is flying the flag for the entire Coach family as far as it goes for Hearthstone. Life Coach, I believe, will still be fulfilling his obligations for Team Germany in global games, but is moving on to greener pastures now, and we wish him the best of luck. But Wife Coach is ready for action for Team Austria, and she is a great player in her own right.
Yeah, she's going to be coming up first. Now, interesting thing about these teams is that they are on opposite sides of the group spectrum. We've got Russia, who has won both series that they've played, and Austria, who have lost both series that they've played. This means that if Russia wins this series, then they are almost guaranteed through to the next phase of the competition, whilst also kind of kicking Austria out.
Yeah. And I think, Russia will kind of enjoy that role of spoiler. Honestly, I think Pavel, since becoming world champion, has really grown into that role. Like, he actually introduces himself in interviews now as, "Hi, I'm world champion Pavel."
Can you blame him?
Which is, no, hell yeah, I would. I'm amazed that Firebat and Oskaka didn't do it all year as well. Like, Firebat just followed it up by winning everything else as well, which is apparently the Pavel school of victory at the same time. But I mean, he's become a very, very confident guy, and I think he's really grown into the role of the guy with the target on his back, the guy that everyone is looking up to, the guy that everyone wants to knock off the perch, and I think he's relishing it. So the opportunity for Pavel and Russia to be able to knock a lesser team, perhaps, if we want to put it that way, out of the competition, I think they are perhaps enjoying their role as the bullies of this tournament.
Right. And Pavel will be the first of the team to start the bullying with his Paladin against Wife Coach with her Warrior. Now, when I think Wife Coach, I instantly think Pirate Warrior. I'm not sure why, I just believe it's the deck that I've seen her play the most. You're looking at me very, very puzzled.
I am, yeah, because I've actually spent some time with Life Coach and Wife Coach, not just at events, but like we've roomed together at DreamHack, for example. I've got to know them both quite well, and Wife Coach actually really prefers playing control overall.
Oh, wow,
so,
there you go.
Yeah.
So it could be either then. We completely disagree on that. Against the Paladin, it's difficult to even say which would be better because we don't know where on the spectrum Pavel's Paladin is, although we're just about to find out as we go into the first game.
Yeah, you win.
I win. I'm pretty sure she played Pirate Warrior last week as well. Could be wrong though.
Okay. I mean, again,
that might even be why I thought that.
Personal preferences have to go out the window, right? Like, for this tournament, it's not which deck do I like best, it's which deck fits the lineup best, right? So, my perception that Wife Coach likes playing control is kind of irrelevant. It just comes down to, which deck do we think fits this position the best.
And that's not a bad opening hand for
solid.
Wife Coach. 1, 2, 2, 3 jobs, sure. Nazoth's first mate seems pretty good on 1. She seems quite happy about it. Is that some teammates that she's joined by as well? Can't quite see behind the warrior
One
logo.
of them has a 0 for a face. The other one has a warrior's sword for a face. So, yeah.
Hopefully they'll huddle in at some point.
Pavel, of course, I think, was it last week or the week before, he was playing live with Staunedachi as they were preparing for CN versus EU, but he's back home in his rather odd-looking bedroom, I assume, with that kind of vista painted on the wall behind
that
him.
is a painting or wallpaper.
I believe so, yeah.
But I remember being confused the first time I saw it as well.
It's like, wait, does Pavel just live in some luxurious Venetian apartment? Like,
It's balcony, and it's, not quite as strong a start as Wife Coach had there. He's going to be playing catch-up for what looks like the first few turns this game, while Wife Coach begins to completely take control of this board.
Coin's Pirate here. That's interesting.
Were you looking at the Frothing Berserker?
I was looking at the Frothing Berserker because there is actually nothing that that Paladin can do to deal with minions like that early on. The threat there, though, is Outdoor Peacekeeper, and it also means if you go Frothing, you trade off all your pirates. So the curve of Frothing into Bloodsail Cultist doesn't work because you won't have the pirate there to activate, whereas this curve the other way around of Cultist into Frothing does work.
You repeated the word champion a lot when talking about Team Russia, but this is not a champion hand that Pavel has right here. Having to just hero power on turn 3 against a pirate warrior, that is very sad.
It does have one crucial ingredient, though, which is the True Silver Champion, which will be able to take care of the Frothing Berserker, at least temporarily for now. And that might just be enough time to stabilize towards Spike Ridge Steed and Primordial Drake. If the game lasts to get to Steed and Drake, then that's going to be massively Paladin favored from that position.
Interestingly, though, if Wife Coach made your play previously, played the Frothing Berserker into the second Frothing Berserker, Pavel would only be able to deal with one, and the second one would be getting wildly out of control at this point.
Yeah, we do have to temper that statement by saying, okay, the Frothing Berserker was top deck that turn, the second one, so you couldn't have planned for that turn anyway. And secondly, that is just kind of results-oriented anyway, right? Like, if the first Frothing came down and it was answered by an Aldor, then the whole play looks very stupid. If it goes Aldor, then into True Silver.
So, despite Pavel's weak start, it's not looking too bad at the moment. Like you said, True Silver Champion allowed him to catch up a little bit, and now Wife Coach is sort of going to make her last big push before Pavel can start doing things. That being said, he can't really deal with that much of this just yet.
It's not looking like the turns are there. Pavel needs to find some kind of answer over the next turn or two, and then find a way to land Spike Ridge Steed or Primordial Drake. But right now, it just doesn't look like he has the turns to get to turn 8, which is probably where either of those plays come down, because I don't think Austria are going to be silly enough to let Pavel land a Spike Ridge Steed on a minion unless it's turn 8, hero power, Spike Ridge Steed in the same turn.
And that's a long way away. By then, it's just as good for Pavel to go ahead and drop Primordial Drake. Wicker Flame Burn Bristle, though,
helps.
Not a bad pickup here.
Takes out one of the 4/3. That means the 1/1 and the weapon has to go into the Burn Bristle, and it also, because of that exact thing that we're talking about, means that one of these big sources of damage, either the Cultist or the Bloodsail Raider, has to go into the 1/1 as well. That 1/1 has to be respected because of Spike Ridge Steed.
Sassy Deckhand helps a little bit, can maybe mitigate that by trading the 2/1 in, and therefore pushing the 3/4 or the 4/3 into the face. But what else does Wife Coach do this turn? Maybe Captain Dread Corsair is just stronger.
Can you ever set up lethal through a Quality Consecration? A Quality Consecration is about the only good answer to your board state here if you clear. I don't think you can quite push enough to get that done. It doesn't quite look like it. So, yeah, it's probably just going to be just maximum board development and hope they don't have it, which Captain and Berserker or Captain Dread Corsair Deckhand are the two options. It's going to go for the latter, holding back potentially. Oh, sorry, no mana for the Deckhand, just Captain Dread Corsair. So a little bit surprising maybe in that case that the Frothing Berserker doesn't come down.
Healing up Pavel back to 19 and then pushing him right back down again.
Yeah, I guess what the plan is here is, okay, this board wins the game every single time unless there is a Quality Consecrate. And even then, there is a Quality Consecrate, the Frothing Berserker is probably my first pick of cards I'd like to have in my hand to then refill with afterwards.
Yep, seems strong, and as we can see, and as Pavel can see...
Miriam praying, no, please, just give it up. There you go. 1-0 Austria. World champion Pavel is vanquished. Austria get themselves on the board with the Pirate Warrior.
Wife coach looking very happy, switching places. Oh, it looks like the entirety of Team Austria is sitting there playing together. That's always fun to see.
I think they have been doing that. Generally, Germany have turned up to Life Coach's house as well to play with Life Coach, and Austria have been generally showing up to play with Wife Coach as well. So, I mean, when you have such a wonderful place as Life Coach and his wonderful wife do have, then why wouldn't you want to go there to play Hearthstone?
Yeah, I think there was only 1 week that they weren't playing together. I think you're right. The rest of the time they have been. But don't worry, Pavel has not been playing on his own. That wasn't just a horrible 4-on-1 that you just witnessed. Team Russia will be communicating via comms, via headsets, all of that stuff throughout the entirety of the series. But now, Wife Coach and Team Austria, well, they were celebrating. They were looking very, very happy about that win.
Yeah. And just picking up any game win over Pavel is nothing to be sniffed at these days, because this is the guy. What was his EU versus CN record in the end? 9-1, something like that, against some of the best players that Europe and China have to offer. It's not too often that Pavel loses these days. You can look at his overall competitive win rate on sites like Gosu Gamers that are tracking this kind of thing, and this is a man that has very much backed up his World Championship winning performance by continuing his dominance. So any win over that man, I say man, he is a boy, let's be honest.
He's not very old, is he?
I think he's 18 actually, so I guess he is officially a man. He just doesn't quite look like it just yet.
And I was going to talk about how young Game King was, and I believe he's 19. So
is he really?
Yeah.
I would have had like a 3-year gap between those two. Yeah, crazy.
Austria very much the underdog in this competition, so no surprise that they're celebrating their win. I say in this competition, but specifically because of their 0-2 score. They need to win this. It's very, very important. So getting that first win on the board of this series, it's going to make them feel a little bit at ease.
Yeah, and I think, particularly in this matchup, you have to consider them the underdog. That's not selling the achievements of people like Game King Short, who are definitely very well accomplished players, great ladder results, and some tournament pedigree to back that up. But I think just about any country in this tournament, when they come up against Russia, you have to consider them the underdogs, except, perhaps the Ukraine and a couple of others. We will await some of these showdowns coming later down the line. But I think anyone in this group that is matched up against Russia has to be sort of looking up in awe of the pantheon of Hearthstone gods that lay before them.
Right. Well, next up, it's going to be Stanodachi on the Shaman, of course, our current winter champion, versus Zaganteig, a player who is arguably the least experienced on Team Austria, probably the least known. I believe he has 1 golden class, and that's Warlock, which unfortunately isn't that helpful now. Back in the days of Zoo, and I think more importantly for him, Reno Log was his deck of choice. But these decks just don't exist anymore. Well, Zoo does. We saw it lose once today. Great. But he's going to have to show his Paladin experience now.
So Mr. Magic Pants himself is going to step up against Zaganteig with the Shaman up against the Paladin coming back from the other side. And in case you're curious, that's not because Stanodachi actually has like a lucky pair of trousers or something. His name literally means Magic Pants.
Great.
Yeah.
We're seeing from Austria's side the first, I think, truly aggressive Paladin that we've seen today. We've got the Cold Light Seer, which, unless things have changed dramatically, that card does indicate a pure aggressive Paladin.
Yeah, I was, during my week off, Raven was talking to me about this, what we did while you guys were handling it last week. I did watch an awful lot of EU versus CN as well as watching you guys, and was enjoying, of course, the wonderful commentary duo of Firebat and Zalay. Right. And Firebat is a man very close to my heart. We tend to agree on things like this, and he was making a comment about how people are now building these Paladin decks to try and do everything, whereas Firebat is a very big fan of building a deck to do one thing and mathematically optimizing its chances to do that one thing. I 100% agree with that stance, and I think... I'm not sure if it was the game I was casting with you where I was talking about had this very, very aggressive start, and then suddenly it was Stonehill Defender hero power on turn 5. So I'm a big fan of just the all-in aggression or the all-in control when it comes to Paladin. I think either of those are fine. I think the middle ground deck is, Toolbox Paladin, if you want to call it that, where it just has a bit of everything in there, can sometimes just come unstuck in a lot of situations.
Speaking of a bit of everything, this is not the first Galactic Crawler that we've seen today, and it's not the first Galactic Crawler we've seen with no targets today either. Unfortunately, Second Tag not getting the matchup that he wanted for this card, but it's still a 2-3 for 2 mana. He's obviously decided that it's better to drop this than the Hydrologist this turn.
Yeah, I think Hydrologist, he wants to stick around since it's the only Murloc he has in his hand right now to pair with that Seer. So he doesn't just want to drop it onto turn 2 and have Standardachi say, all right, sweet, Jade Claws, let's go. Then suddenly he's got no Murlocs left in his hand and he's got a very sad Cold Light Seer sat around doing nothing. So he wants to test for Jade Claws. He wants to just, stick one toe in the water and figure out what Standardachi has going on in terms of A, what his Shaman deck looks like, B, whether there is a threat of things like Jade Claws, and then move forward from there with the Murloc synergies as and when they come later on.
Yep, he's going to have to make that happen at some point later. We can see Wicked Flame Burn Bristle, that works as a 3-drop, but still it isn't a Murloc, so he may have to wait a little while before he creates the board where Cold Light Seer becomes worthwhile, but he is going to want it sooner rather than later. Grimescale Chum, another card that indicates a very aggressive Murloc Paladin deck.
Yeah, turns awkward though, as you mentioned. Burn Bristle does protect this 2-1 and allows it to keep pushing. You're very exposed to Maelstrom Portal if you go with the Wicker Flame line. But otherwise, it's one of those plays where, okay, I can play Wicker Flame and get punished by Maelstrom Portal, but the alternative is that there's just a miserable trade on the board happening anyway, right? Yeah. So it's a play with possible upside and a world where the downside only puts you back pretty much in the same spot whereas if you hadn't played it.
I wonder if he ever considers the trade here. It makes his board slightly better against the Maelstrom Portal. Looks like he's going for it. Because that Maelstrom Portal, it still clears the entire board. Maybe it's no different.
Yeah, it means there is a difference. The difference is the 1-1. The 1-1 would still be alive if he didn't trade. I'm just not entirely sure how relevant that 1-1 is in terms of pushing 2 damage when you are clearly the aggressive deck in this matchup. I mean, your hand has a Grimscale Chum in it. You're pretty certainly playing the aggressor.
Also, if taking Maelstrom Portal aside for a moment, according to this board, Standardachi can't deal with the Wicker Flame, whereas if he left the 1-1 there, obviously it was just a case of trading twice. So I guess he's opting to protect his Wicker Flame Burn Bristle rather than protecting the Galactic Crawler. Standardachi now going to just go ahead and drop Manatide Totem, start drawing some cards.
It's fair. Manatide is going to pick up Lightning Storm, but the True Silver Champion is here to answer it, which is important. I talked about in the previous series the usage of Manatide Totem to disrupt your opponent's turns, which is what Stan and Russia are trying to do here, and then the ability to be able to answer Manatide Totem yourself if that comes out, which Austria were well prepared to do with the True Silver.
Now, Standardachi just having to totem up Maelstrom Portal and deal with the board. Not wanting to waste the Jinyu Water Speaker yet, especially as he doesn't know quite what sort of paladin that he's against. The Tentacle of N'Zoth not going to serve Standardachi too well.
Well, I wonder, because there aren't too many 1-drops that would have come out here that demanded that True Silver Champion being used this turn. Whereas Tentacle of N'Zoth is something that you do kind of want to just get killed so that it doesn't interact with the board later. So I wonder whether that might actually even be a positive for Standardachi.
Stonehill, Defender, and Hydrologist look like the cards that Second Tag is considering. Gentle Megasaur not going to happen this turn. Grimescale Chum could be considered, but he really wants to get all of these Murlocs off together a little bit later on.
He does, and he's suffering here from the slow start, right? And this is the downside. Like when I'm talking about this kind of Firebat debate about whether you build your deck flexibly or whether you build it to do one thing specifically, the more flexible your deck is, the more you're able to recover from positions like this, right? Whereas if you try and mathematically maximize your opportunity to play a Murloc on 1 and just snowball from there to the rest of the game, yes, you do that one thing more often, but the games where that one thing doesn't happen, it's much, much harder to recover because your deck isn't able to adapt as well.
Sure, if you just whiff one turn and you end up playing some sort of control game, you just can't win against any sort of mid-range or control-y deck. Harrison Jones just helped Stanodachi a lot. Getting rid of a true silver champion charge, drawing a card, that's a pretty nice swing there.
It is, and you know, doubly punished really for not using the true silver champion. I said there might be a debate in terms of the Tentacle of N'Zoth as to whether he wanted to clear it so it didn't start to mess with his board too much. He chose not to, and then not only was that Tentacle able to detonate his 1/1 from behind the taunt, but holding on to the true silver also got punished by that Harrison Jones, which is a card that we just see every single time in Shaman. This deck always has a Harrison in it.
It does seem to nowadays, doesn't it? It seems to be the weapon removal of choice rather than the volatile ooze, which is more common.
Volatile ooze?
Volatile ooze?
Where did that come from?
Volatile? No. Which one is it?
Gluttonous.
Gluttonous!
Yeah. I'm just wondering where you even got the word volatile
I think I went from volcanic to volatile somehow,
Interesting.
thinking of potions. Anywho, called it that earlier. Raven didn't pick me up on it.
Shaman always has struggled for card draw, though, which I think is part of the reason. We saw, I think, Farsight coming out, for example, trying to find a solution to this card draw issue, because Mana Tides aren't reliable, right? So I think Shaman, for the most part, would rather have the potential of a bit of extra card draw over the potential of a bit of extra armor gain, when they already have such resilient healing already with Jinyus and Hot Spring Guardians.
Right. A few twos there, rolled from the Lightning Storm, but not to worry. Maelstrom Portal finishes that up, and yeah, that's not a bad one-drop. I feel like it's not one you see very often from the Maelstrom Portal. That's statistically incorrect, because
I was going to say,
you get
I'm
them
willing
all,
to bet
often.
you see it exactly as much as any other one-drop.
But it's one of those that when you do see it, it can have quite a big effect. We could get a Tyrion out of this thing. Yeah, we could.
12 pick up. Bogchamp hits the board, and there isn't a crispy-looking answer to it. War Leader isn't the best in the world. 3 mana, 3/3 is about all that's going to happen on that front for Stanidachi in this Shaman, but still, it's an extra resource in hand. It's Maelstrom Portal did a job, summoned a minion, which is, you know, already the potential to create a 2-for-1 situation. And when that minion then death rattles into another minion, that's when you are really starting to get down the valueception rabbit hole.
I agree with you. I don't think it particularly matters that it's just a 3 mana, 3/3.
a card.
It might just fit the curve at some point, like right now,
yeah.
and end up being just as helpful. He's got enough late game stuff in his deck. He wins the value game. He doesn't necessarily need an extra Tyrion, though Tyrion's a pretty good card. It has to be said.
I would take a spare Tyrion in most circumstances.
Yeah.
I think especially now, now Stan and Russia have seen Grimscale Charm, for example. They know, all right, this is a pretty aggressive paladin we're up against. This isn't going to go the distance with Curator and Primordial Drake and all that madness. So if we probably just set out and beat these 5 or 6 cards that he has in hand, plus 2 or 3 more top decks, that's probably about the end of his gas in this game.
Right. And Sigantag actually has a chance to really get a grip on the board here. The problem is with Spike-Witch Steed is that it's so weak to Devolve and Hex. Blessing of Kings doesn't really make the Bog Creeper survive for long enough, so he is going to go with a Spike-Witch Steed. I like it a lot. And really, what's Devolve? Devolve gives him a 6-drop. 6-drops could be okay.
6-drops aren't brilliant overall, actually, if you look at the average stats per mana cost. It's actually one of the lowest value opportunities. Obviously, a 6-drop is still a decent chunk of stats.
Somewhere around 5/5, I'd say.
Yeah, it's, I think maybe even a little bit lower than that. There's a lot of really nasty 6-drops.
That one's good.
That one's fine. Defias Cleaner. 5/7, silence a minion with death rattle.
Defias Cleaner, is it?
I think that's right.
I agree about Defias. You might be right. I don't know. I just... We'll look it up later.
I saw it being played in response to all the, ironically actually, all the Spike-Ridge Steed being around, right? Because it's a card that can come down at that period of the game. It's a big body, 5/7, then silence a minion with death rattle. They jam Spike-Ridge Steed on something, you slam it out. And I think it was actually Firebat that I saw messing around with it. And his whole chat was saying, well, why aren't you just playing Spellbreaker? Like, just play Spellbreaker. Just play Spellbreaker. He's like, no, it's a 5/7, and most of the good silence targets are just death rattles anyway.
Sure.
Then he got Frost Nova Doomsaid and went, yeah, you know what, guys? It should be a Spellbreaker.
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with you on the Defias half of its name.
Okay.
Blessing of Kings, though, is going to make it a 9/11. 6 mana 9/11 is not bad. You said 6 mana minions were bad, Soto. It's a 9/11.
Sorry, I forgot all about this giant pile of stats on 6 mana.
Last time I trust your stats.
What is the secret, by the way? Is it Kodo?
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, despite being so far unfavored in the value game, Austria, even with such a weak start, have been able to push through so much potential damage here. And the Volcano is an available clear here for Stanadachi if he wants to go for it. With only a 3/3 Jade inside of that Aya, he can for sure guarantee that that we die on kill the 9/11, right?
Yeah. Zigantag actually running out of time, but he's coming up with some pretty good stuff at the moment. Like his mid game has been solid, considering how this deck is clearly built for the early game. Though the more turns go on, the better the situation is going to be for Stanadachi's naturally late game deck.
Interested as to how Stan's looking at this now. With the Blood Mage and Jade Lightning for 6 now, he can clear it out that way. If that first spell damage totem hadn't have landed, was he just intending to put the Jade Chieftain Taunt in the way and just hoping that was going to stick? Because the Volcano looked pretty promising, right? Like trading your minions into it first to lower the health on the board. Volcano, you still have a 3/3 Jade left over, plus you can develop behind that. Like that just seems like game over at that point.
Raven and I saw a similar strategy, though, that Stanadachi is doing right now, which is just keep Aya alive for as long as possible. Don't let that Death Rattle pop, because that means that when there's an Equality Consecration, great, you clear most of the board.
This is a Grimscale Chum deck, though. Are you really scared of Equality Consecration?
Even, like, just Consecration on its own.
Sure.
The Jades aren't that big at the moment, but a Consecration would still allow Stanadachi to come out with a 4/4. Finja, the Flying Star, is kind of difficult for Stanadachi.
It is.
He can't prevent it easily. I don't think he can prevent it at all, can he? Well, if he just plays Thing from below, he can.
Again, Volcano is the big question mark, but this is a really messy Volcano to be throwing out just to kill Finja. Gonna cycle the Blood Mage here, see what he picks up. Volcano number 2.
The difficult thing is, if Stan wants to prevent Finja from going off, then he needs to just play Thing from below and no other taunts. That means he can't use his hero power. Because if he goes with that line and rolls a taunt totem, then Finja's going to proc anyway.
Sure. He's at 6 health, so from Zygantag's side, once he trades in, if he gets a Bluegill Warrior, which could be in the deck since it's the aggressive version with Grimscale Charm, then Megasaur, even with +3 attack, isn't enough to force through lethal, so it would have to be Bluegill plus a buff plus Megasaur to even push through, and those are the kind of outs you're looking at in this situation because of the fact that, like, hey, right now you're in a mess as a mess in Austria because you've lost the board so definitively in your board snowball deck. So you are having to try and find just creative ways to end the game.
Well, there's that Consecration we were talking about earlier, and that is actually going to allow Zygantag to trade Finja into the 4/4 Jade Golem and then get his Murlocs. Problem is, well, what Murlocs?
Well, it does mean now, let's say, if Finja pulls double Bluegill Warrior...
That'd be insane.
Then you can Megasaur for plus attack, or, +3, and then one will trade through the 5/5 taunt, the other 2 taunts will be dead to the Consecration, and the remaining 5 damage will be lethal to face after it takes 2. So there's a tiny, tiny out on 1, there being Bluegill Warriors in the deck, 2, that entire sequence of RNG happening in Austria's favor, and 3, no.
Austria didn't even play into it, though. They didn't start with the Consecration. They opted to just trade away the taunt.
Yeah, like I said, there might not even be Bluegills in the deck,
That might not be.
Yeah.
He's going for a really wide Murloc board now. It looks like it's Gentle Megasaur time. I'm curious as to which adaptation he's going to want to get from this. Goes with the Divine Shield very, very quickly. Looks like that's what he was looking for. And Stanadachi doesn't care because he can clear the board.
5/9, 14, 19. He also has 22 damage to face himself right now. and no damage from hand to follow it up. But yeah, various combinations of these AoE effects in hand and onboard trades, however he wants to take it, will put an end to this madness very, very quickly.
This game is definitely showing one of the weaknesses of Volcano, though, as we've seen that first one in Standardacci's hand for a very long time. Second one there, too. If you've already got the boards, it's not going to allow you to just deal with your opponent's threats. You have to rely on the board you've already got to do that. That being said, if you've already got the board, do you really need it anyway?
Yeah, I mean, that is the best kind of card, right? It's if it's only not good when you're already winning and you still win those games anyway, then fine. You will play that card a lot of the time. But I do agree with your sentiment. It's why I question that turn where he could have used the Volcano on the... I'm going to keep calling it Defias Cleaner, even though you've put the doubt in my mind now.
It might be Defias Cleaner.
In that turn where there was the 11 health Defias, and he could have traded in first and then Volcanoed and still had the Death Rattle Jade from his Aya come down afterwards. He still could have developed Thing from Below alongside that on the same turn, as well as I think like Blood Mage or Totem or whatever else he wanted to do. That felt like the turn that said, hey, we're going to have the board for the rest of the game now, so let's use this Volcano while we can. Not that it's mattered, because he has ended up in pretty comfortable control of this game regardless. Yeah,
Volcano, the opposite of a win more card. However, Spirit Echo, pretty much the definition of one. As Standardacci's board gets completely annihilated by 2 Consecrations. Unfortunately, that Spirit Echo, which for a moment there looked like it was the perfect draw, now is somewhat useless.
Honestly, it's fine. At this point, Hot Spring and Spirit Echo here seems perfectly reasonable to me.
Yeah, that being said, Second Tag's going to be able to play the Curator next turn, restock his hand, and actually get the aggression going once more. I don't think that Standardacci's completely out of the woods just yet.
Does that mean there is going to be a Primordial Drake in his Grimscale Chum deck?
I mean, we've seen stranger things.
Oh, okay, he took it off Stonehill. That's fair. Sorry, my bad.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so just Murloc and Beast, no Dragon being thrown in. It's not a natural Curator from the deck. I missed the fact that he picked it up from Stonehill,
as well.
Which makes a lot more sense. I was about to question every last element of my sanity.
Oh, wow. Pretty much exactly what Standardacci needs right now. He can play the Jade Chieftain and then just drop the Spirit Echo. The only question he has to ask is he safe on 11 health with this play? He ends up with a 6/6 taunt and a 2/4 taunt. What beats him? Does Gentle Megasaur ever beat him?
Is it 6/6 for sure?
I believe so.
Because, so if he Hero Powers, say he's playing around like Hero Power Megasaur, right? Hero Power Megasaur into +3 damage is 6 damage exactly on that Tidecaller. So the difference between 5 or 6 or 7, whatever the Jades are at, are actually a very big deal in this position. It turns out that, you know, from Austria's perspective, they have War Leader plus Hero Power plus Megasaur, so the numbers actually get huge, so they can really break through any kind of board presence that is thrown up here if Stern doesn't deal with these Murlocs on board. But from Russia's perspective, they might be playing around more realistic combinations, right? There's 3 cards in hand. We've already seen 1 Megasaur get used. Have we seen a War Leader get played yet? I don't think so. No. So it's fairly reasonable for them to have 1 of those cards in hand at this point. But 2 would seem unlikely, and there is a potential big punish coming out now.
Yeah, well, if this play doesn't lose Standardacci the game, then it probably wins him the game. You look very...
War Leader, Seer, and Megasaur all in the same turn.
That's a lot of Murloc synergy.
The War Leader buffs the Tidecaller here immediately to 5, which, as I said, this is one of the reasons why that being a 6/6 was so important, because just War Leader into Grime Street Protector would have been insane against a 5/5 Jade Taunt. Against a 6/5, he needs to keep going. Against a 6/6, he needs to keep going with the buffs. Taunt, Divine Shield, and 1/1 plants are the offers. Divine Shield will do just fine, but these Volcanoes are going to start to now pay off big, potentially, for Standardacci.
Are we about to see a double Volcano in one turn? I think it's possible.
Have you not seen this before? I've seen this happen.
No, I don't think so.
Interesting. You sweet summer child.
But that is the comeback Standardacci needs. I said a moment ago, if he doesn't lose from that play, he quite possibly wins from it. He gets an extra Jade Chieftain, an extra heal, an extra 6-mana 6/6.
So 4, 8, 13 health on the left-hand side of the board, 16 with the 3 Divine Shields, 21, 25, 29. 29 just on Austria's side of the board, plus the additional 10 on Stan's side of the board. Of course, those numbers can subtract from each other quite nicely because you can make those trades in first to reduce the numbers. So yes, short answer, double Volcano is going to be a clear here. If that's the line Stan decides to go with.
Double Volcano will overload him for 4 next turn, meaning he's got 6 mana. That's kind of awkward. It means he can't play Jade Chieftain next turn. He could just play a 6 mana 6/6 next turn. He could play Jade Claws, which is a 2 mana 7/7.
Actually, is it? Because the 5/5 can't actually trade very effectively. The 5/5 attacking in just like this will already take 8 health off the board. Then you can take 3 more off with the Jinyu. So yeah, it works just fine.
Yeah.
Volcano Maths is so annoying. It's one of my least favorite things to have to do while playing Hearthstone.
Not one of the things that comes up that often on the ladder, though. In these tournaments, where the Shaman is very relevant, and sure, but not the most popular ladder deck at the moment.
It's fair. This is now pretty much, I believe, the last hurrah here for Zieg and Teague. Both Hero Power, Grime Street Protector, and Rockpool Hunter, Grime Street Protector basically develop the same amount of power. If the 1/1 sticks, then it can be buffed the next turn to attack for 2 anyway. So I expect, yeah, this just looks like the slightly more flexible play. And this is, yet again, setting up lethal, but it's fairly easy to realize it's not because you know that there are various cards Spirit Echoed back to your opponent's hands right now.
Yep, Hot Spring Guardian, as was already hovered over, is probably the most relevant here. Hex is there if Standard actually needs it, though I don't think we've seen a Tyrion yet. And
we have not.
Hex is much more likely to want to find that as a target. Jinyu Water Speaker, playable as well, setting Standard back up to 14, which doesn't put up a taunt, so it's not completely safe, but he could pair that with the Jade Claws, once again putting a 7/7 on the board. It's just... Russia have been on the edge, so close to losing for the last few turns in a row. This is sort of the last little bit of danger. After the next turn, I'd say that Standard is completely out of the woods and in a much safer place.
Yeah. I mean, basically, ever since that turn where they were 2 damage off lethal, when they had like 24 damage on board against 26 health or whatever, but couldn't do any damage because they're a puny control deck. Ever since that turn, they've kind of just been scrambling. It's like, all right, let's just live this turn. All right, let's just live next turn. Just trying to find solutions to problems turn by turn. There's a lot more forward planning going into that than it sounds, but they are just trying to survive at the moment on a case-by-case basis. And Austria just keeps getting these draws that just gives them that fraction of hope every single turn.
Yeah, Russia playing it very safe there with that Hex. Arguably wasting it before Tyrion comes out, but seemed like it was necessary.
You don't play around Tyrion when your opponent has no cards in their hand. It's just, you know, if Hex is the best play on board, you Hex. Like, playing around top decks is generally a route to madness in Hearthstone.
And now this is a pretty nice board that Standardachi is
solid.
Is conjuring up there. 7/7, 8/8, and 5/5.
Tarim is lethal though.
What just happened?
I told this deck just gets there, dude. You build your deck to do one thing, it does it. You kill people. That's what happens.
That is quite...
That's insane.
Unbelievable. Both Pavel and Standardachi have been toppled so far by Team Austria.
The look on Stan's face right now, he is disgusted. I mean, that game... Yes, those last few chain of draws from Austria were incredible. But that game, there was so many decisions as to how to be defensive from Russia's position. I guarantee you, if we go back through that with a fine-tooth comb, there was something that Russia could have done to be safer. Potentially, it may have even been that Volcano turn that I've been talking about the whole time. Like, at that point, if they'd have just taken the board that early, it might have been just no way back from that position. But you really have to go back and break it down. But when there was so many defensive options that all looked fine for so many turns, you can guarantee that one of those options stands out as being much better than something they did, and that window did not have to be there for Austria. But let's make no bones about it, Austria did what they could there, but their deck was very, very kind to them for the last few turns.
Just more and more damage, and then in the last possible moment, I doubt they would have had a board really after that turn.
Right.
Tarim comes out, deals 6 damage to the face after trading away, or 9 damage to the face rather. Oh my goodness. Okay, well...
Do you need a moment?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
We've had the moment. Next up, Game King on the Priest versus Silver Name on the Mage. Now, I was talking to Game King earlier. I asked him, how's he feeling about this? Because, again, Game King and I are former teammates, and they're under fate to come.
Game King was on FTK?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And they're
yes, I did. Yeah, no,
they're under the pressure here. They need to win this series. And he said to me, the first thing he said to me was, we need to get lucky.
Mission accomplished.
I said to him, like, you're not feeling confident? He said, we are, but we need to win. So we wouldn't mind getting a little bit lucky.
Sure.
And now it's all on him. If he wins this, they could take this series against Russia with a 3-0. Not a bad thing to be able to say.
And he has got a beautiful matchup, most likely, to go about doing this. The Priest coming up against the Mage, not as one-sided as we saw it in, let's say, Week 3, Week 4, for example, when it was just the weird Lyra Miracle Priest with usually binding heals thrown in there alongside everything else, coming up against the straight-up Gunther Mage all of the time. Now, there's the opportunity for the Mage to be a secret Mage, which is more resilient in terms of just tempo with minions and fighting for the board honestly. And there's also been the advent and the genesis of Silence Priest, which is not quite as resilient in terms of outlasting Mage and just exhausting the deck out of damage, but does pressure them a lot better than any other Priest deck can do.
Yeah, Free from Amber and Medivh the Guardian seem to have been mostly dropped from Priests nowadays.
Yes. You
still see Free from Amber from the occasional Lyra summon, but that's it. Like you said, the primary Priest at the moment is Silence Priest. We see some Dragon Priest as well. Dragon Priest can be very, very strong against the Mage. Again, harkens back to pre-Ngoro Gadget Zan meta, where... Well,
I'm just a fan of good words, and harken is a nice word.
Where the Jackanid Operative was able to just keep getting more stuff from the opponent's deck and eventually win the game. It helps that it's a decent tempo play as well on turn 5. It's a 5/6. You don't really mind playing that, even just for its effect or just for its body.
Yeah, but as we mentioned, if you're going to go into pretty much any class versus class, just, sight unseen, I play a class, you play a class, everything is on the line. Me as Priest versus you as Mage is one of the first things that you're going to throw into that, because bizarrely now, as we've mentioned, Priest is just heavily favored on average against, sight unseen Mage deck against sight unseen Priest deck. The Priest is a heavy favorite, and that was just so far from the case. Just, as far back as just the previous expansion, right? Like Mean Streets.
The one thing that Mage can do is win quickly. Yes. Before the Priest picked up Priest of the Feast, before the Priest has picked up the spells that it needs to combo to gain all of the health, the Mage can just sometimes play Alexstrasza on 9 and then just double Fireball Frostbolt on 10. It is possible.
And not even that. Sometimes you just go Mana Worm, Arcanologist into 3... Why do you laugh every time I say Mana Worm?
I knew you'd bring up the Mana Worm.
But it's a curve of the deck that actually happens sometimes, right? Where you just go 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, start buffing your Mana Worm. There's no clean answer. It's unlikely against Priest because they have Potion of Madness, Shadower, Pain, all these potential tools that they can use against it, but it can happen. And that is a way that you can blow Priest out of the game before they even get a foothold into Divine Favors and, Divine Spirits and Faceless Shamblers, etc.
I think a lot of people share your opinion of the Mana Worm, by the way, Soto.
What is my opinion of it? I'm sure you've invented an opinion of Mana Worm.
How you think it's disgusting on turn 1? Well, how
it just is.
It's all you want.
It's really powerful as a 1-drop. Why is this a controversial opinion?
I was playing a lot of Secret Mage on the ladder the other day, and it got to the point where every time I played Mana Worm on turn 1, my opponents would emote me.
Seems valid.
Yeah.
I don't understand what your issue is with my perfectly healthy description of Mana Worm.
This is looking more like a Gunther Mage than a Secret Mage, though, with the Ice Block and the Gluttonous
Ooze, importantly, yeah.
Gluttonous Ooze.
Ice Block, Gluttonous Ooze, yeah. Ice Block can definitely be part of the Secret package in Secret Mage. I think if you're playing Pyroblast, Ice Block makes a lot of sense, and Ice Block is just the best secret in the world for activating Medivh's Valets, just because it's universal. so it can't be removed unless through chicanery like Eater of Secrets. So.
Chicanery. I appreciate that word. That being said, Gluttonous Ooze could be in Secret Mage. It is possible. It depends. If they're wanting to build it specifically to beat Pirate Warrior, then sure, why not? That being said, that's a Cabal Courier. I'd say this is much more likely to be Gunter Mage now.
Yes, indeed. The Mana Worm is there crucially, though. So it is going to be an early advantage, and it is the Silence Priest as expected now from Austria. So we will see, because Silence Priest classically removes a lot of the very situational priest removal cards these days. When I really messed around and had a good chunk of success with Silence Priest right back on day 1 of the expansion.
I remember.
And I wasn't playing Shadow Word Death because I felt like Silence can do the job against big threatening minions a lot of the time anyway. But I was still playing Shadow Word Pain because Shadow Word Pain just seems like a nutty card to me. But then suddenly this build that Tyler had amazing success with that just cut basically all of the situational priest removal and just went, hey, you know what? The only spells I'm playing are things that help me hit you in the face really hard.
Yeah, it really put Priest down to its skeleton, and even removed what would be considered very, very important pieces, like the Shadow Word Pain and Death, as you were saying. And now it's just pure Silence Priest. The Sun Fury Protector, not one of the cards that was seen in Tyler's list that he had a lot of success with back then.
Yeah.
But it's something that people have been putting in. It's sort of like squeezing an extra Faceless Shambler in. It allows you to give one of your big Razor Leafs or Watchers taunt, even if it's not been silenced, and even if it's not able to attack.
Is this a good card, Falk?
Oh, Mana Worm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This 1-drop that's just now a 3/1 has killed the Priest's first minion for free.
Yeah, it's good.
All right, good. I'm glad we're on the same page.
That's incredibly strong, and I totally agree that a lot of the mages' success can come down to whether or not they get it on turn 1. Mages aren't often running Babbling Book. They're not even running Cabal Lackey, which seemed for a while like that would be a common thing.
In the Secret Mage,
Yeah,
right?
in the Secret Mage.
Sure.
But even they don't seem to be running that card. Turn 1 Mage, it's all about the Mana Worm.
So Primordial Glyph into any card that costs less than 3 will enable a reasonable trade here. Glyph into Arcane Intellect would probably be the absolute dream in this position.
Yeah. Or Counterspell in this scenario.
Sure.
When you've got complete control. Not complete control of the board, but when the Priest has nothing on the board. We saw one of the players earlier today mess up their interaction against Counterspell as the Priest by wasting Purify when they could have used a potion
it was Silence, but yes, same.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that Potion of Madness that they didn't use to test was just stuck in hand all the way to the end. It was Australia at the time, and Navi even said in his interview afterwards, like, yeah, we really messed up against that counterspell, got punished for it.
Silvername really taking his time here.
It's amazing watching, particularly Stanadachi in the previous game, playing so slowly because he's got 3 other voices in his ears. Like, Stanadachi, I call him like the Hearthstone supercomputer because he plays at such a lightning pace purely off insane weight of experience. I'm confident that he's played more Hearthstone than anyone else alive at this point. Upwards of probably 50,000 wins at this point across all formats. So he's seen every situation before, over and over again. So when he plays, he doesn't have to think and logic out situations. He's been in that situation before, so he just plays in seconds. But now you're in this weird team format where you can't really do that. You have to wait for all of your teammates to have this input around you.
And it could absolutely make him play worse as well.
I think so.
If he's used to playing very, very quickly, and he's having to stop and think and question his own decisions.
Well, Ollie pick up off the first glyph definitely seemed like a clear choice. This one a little bit more awkward. Is it just a pyro and go?
What would Raven pick?
Don't! Please, I get so triggered.
I know. That's why I asked.
I get so triggered by Raven and his Pyroblasts.
Is it right, though? It might be the only way of dealing with...
You've got 2 fireballs in your hand. I don't know. It doesn't look that terrible.
Yeah. Arcane Explosion's definitely not the pick.
How much removal, sorry to cut you off, but like how much actual removal do you need when you already have a Polymorph and a Meteor in your hand, right? Like this deck isn't going to spray the board full of tokens. It's going to play a couple of huge dudes that you can deal, one with a Polymorph and one with a Meteor. And then you just start burning face. Just get 'em.
Ironically, those weren't actually the best picks for this current scenario. I mean, a second Polymorph, yeah, that would have been great.
Right.
But Pyroblast and Flamestrike, actually not as helpful.
What is this hand? Game King, please.
Yeah, Game King not with the best hand here. Doesn't want to purify either of his minions, but does want to draw cards. Can't damage the Acolyte of Pain in any way, but has nothing to heal for the Cleric.
I do sometimes wonder about this Silence Priest build, as my voice just cracks for a second, where you're playing the Acolyte and Cleric package, but most of the time, there it goes again, most of the time you're playing, you're not playing Pyromancer and Circle of Healing. Sometimes there is that one Pyromancer that's being teched in, but I think with some Fury Protector coming in these days, it's probably taking that spot. So how much value do you really get consistently out of Cleric and Acolyte when you're not running Pyromancer and Circle of Healing?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. I apologize. I was just a little bit distracted by that Discover then. Pyros versus the Cabal Songstealer both seemed like pretty good picks, but getting a Silence against a deck that can buff up his stuff a lot seems good.
Yeah, one of the reasons why the Silence Priest mirror is so stupid is that both players are actually scared to use their silence effects offensively.
Yeah.
It quite often goes that whoever commits to like silencing something and going face offensively first loses, because they end up losing to the defensive silence coming back the other way when they put buffs on. So using that knowledge, you can assume that just having silence effects against a Silence Priest is a pretty powerful deal.
It's certainly one of the more interesting mirrors, like with the Quest Rogue mirror.
Interesting. Is that the word you would go with for the Quest Rogue mirror?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it would.
All right.
It would.
Sure.
Especially with the game earlier with the Tar Creeper.
That was actually a really
kind
cool
of being the card that almost won the game because
That was
it
a pretty cool
protected the
game.
board.
Fair enough.
I'll go with interesting though. Second Mana Worm, it's not turn 1, so I guess not quite as relevant anymore. This is where that 5-mana Flamestrike may have come in handy.
True. Still wouldn't have been fantastic in this spot, though. Still not enough mana to Flamestrike ping, which means like value trade Cleric, Flamestrike, and ping the Watcher wouldn't have even really worked.
I guess Meteor's just better, but at the same time, he doesn't really want to waste the Meteor. But then maybe he can, because there's a Polymorph in hand.
These are all excellent points, Falcone.
Meteor, the Ancient Watcher, trade away the Cleric. You've got Polymorph, you've got Cabal Songstealer. I don't know, Silvername has all of the answers he could possibly want.
He also has 22 damage in hand. That's a lot of damage.
Yeah, and Silence Priests don't usually run Priest of the Feast, though it can happen.
It can. I would be very, very surprised if we saw a Priest of the Feast appear in this deck. It seems like a reasonable minion that wouldn't be the worst to play. Like 3/6 is a decent stat line to start going Divine Spirit in a fire on in the first place.
Right.
Plus, it's just such a resilient minion against aggro anyway. But I think when it comes down to it, you know, making a 4/10 taunt early on and then slapping a Faceless Shambler on it, you beat aggro anyway. Like, you don't really need the Priest of the Feast in this deck.
Looks like now that Game King has seen a Meteor, he's all in on the strategy of get him in on the board, double its health again, match its attack with its health, and then I guess play the Shambler. But unfortunately for him, as we can see, Silvername can deal with 2 big minions. He can silence away the Shambler, making it a 1/1, and Polymorph away the other thing, making it a 1/1.
Tempo 5/5 Songstealer, go. No, that's just not going to happen. He would have liked to have a big tempo push this turn, so he could potentially... Jesus. So he could potentially...
Wait a second. There's a Potion of Madness there.
There is.
So if there was a Radiant Elemental, Potion, double health, in a fire, we're actually close to just...
6, 12, 24, yeah. It's close.
Yeah.
I must consider.
There's no mana for it yet anyway. No, there is.
There is, yeah. 24 him and give it back as a 24/24. That doesn't seem wise.
It's terrifying though, just seeing how close he is. If there was a, like, if his next draw is a Powered Shield.
Actually, would it be 25? When does the last like Mana Worm buff apply? Would it apply after the Divine Spirit? I forget with Mana Worm.
That's actually really tough.
Is it when you cast or after you cast on the card text? I can never remember.
I think it's when.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that.
No.
If there was a Powered Shield though, obviously he wouldn't have the mana for it this turn. But say the mana Worm's still there as a 1/3 next turn, and a Powered Shield is picked up. Game King really is getting there. That would just be lethal.
Yep. Has he used a power word shield yet this game?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember.
No, he did. He made
did?
the Radiant Elemental a 2/5 because I was talking about Glyph into Arcane Intellect to deal with it with the Mana Worm.
Mana Worm's not being buffed.
So I believe there is only one left in the deck right now, but that is a glorious out from Game King. If he picks this up now, this will be one of the coolest things that we have seen in competitive Hearthstone.
I can't believe that this is even a possibility. Potion of Madness is just a crazy card.
Mm-hmm. 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana would be the power word shield, yeah. So he'd get it done. That's just way too expensive.
Yeah, almost there again. If there was a Radiant Elemental in hand, then I think this would be possible now. Yeah.
So Radiant Elemental would be 2, then 0, 3, 4, 5, 8. Yeah, you can get it done.
So Game King doesn't really have a choice now. It looks like that's his strategy.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be very, very careful in this kind of position that you don't get super tunneled into the world's biggest cute play syndrome, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
if you end up in this world where that is all you are thinking about doing, then you can potentially find disaster for yourself. But it seems, based on this just kind of hard cycle turn, that might be what he is looking for.
Yeah, immediately he's used up the Cabal Talon Priest. I was thinking, was there a possibility where if the Mana Worm gets buffed up, then Game King could still Potion of Madness the 2/1, use the Talon Priest to make it use the Talon Priest to make it a 2/4, then double.
See, you know what I said
that's
about
30, that's 32.
You know what I said about 30 seconds ago about being sucked into super cute play syndrome?
Right.
That's that.
But yeah, again, like that would have allowed for lethal if there was a Radiant Elemental pickup. The thing is, Austria are running out of ways to win this game.
Right. Mana Worm going to 2. Is the window closing? Ooh, Hydra.
Oh
wow.
My goodness.
That is a ton of power right there. Trade off the Mana Worm. Trade off the Mana Worm. Look at that. Look at that.
Well, now it looks pretty over.
It does, yeah. It was exciting for a moment.
I'm really sad. I was looking forward to that.
Based on the Tarim top deck in the previous game, oh my god, look at the faces of Austria right now.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, you have to say, they probably deserve that after the Tarim pull in the previous game.
You asked me after the last game if I needed a moment. I think after this game, I'm going to need a moment.
Okay, fair enough.
Whoa.
So, is there a survival play into your opponent plays a minion that you can kill him with next turn? Is that ever a world?
Like Medivh's Valet?
It's going to be a 2/3, right? It's going to be Arcanologist or it's going to be Medivh's Valet. So 3 into 6 into 12 into... No, it's just not getting there, right?
No. I don't think there's anything Game King can do to survive. There's, what, 25 damage on board, plus the weapon, plus the ping, plus 2 fireballs, plus a Pyroblast. Obviously, there's no mana to play all of those cards together, but you don't need to play all of those cards together to win. Is there something here?
They are going to find some way to get a random Volcano in their hand.
Oh, is he going to... Oh, wait, he might actually play the Shambler.
Going to make a huge taunt this turn. Just hope it's good enough. Yeah.
If only there was a way of Team Austria playing the Potion of Madness as well, just to show Russia they had it, and they were ready to cheese this victory.
Speaking of only if only there was a way to remove this enormous pile of stats and turn it into an innocuous 1/1 sheep.
Yeah. Well, this isn't the first time we've seen a mage beat a Silence Priest today. I think the very first series that we cast together today, Sottle, there was a similar result. It was actually a secret mage, but it was one that ran Elise the Trailblazer and Pyroblast and other slow cards like that.
Right.
So Mage has had a pretty good day against Priests.
It has, yeah, and I think it is just a nod to the fact that it is this Silence Priest these days, which I know a lot of people are scared of from the Mage's side because it can just so aggressively end games, which is something that Mage doesn't deal too well with. But it doesn't, like, honestly, the super control-heavy Priest list with all the Priest of the Feast and Binding Heals, there was almost a sense of inevitability with that deck, right? Like, it was never going to kill you quickly. It was going to let you do all the Mage things you wanted to do, but it will outlast you. It's just going to get there. You know, it's going to Dragonfire Potion away your Medivh boards, it's going to heal back up after your Alexstrasza, it's just going to outlast your deck and you're not going to get there. Against Silence Priest, you at least have a chance to do that to them, basically, right? Just deny their big threats and set up a win for yourself.
Just slow them down, methodically deal with their minions, and you get there. And now we're going to go into game number 4. Russia claiming their first win. They're still in this. They're not a team to be defeated too easily.
No. And it's going to be chance number 2 now for Austria to get their win on the board. And it's going to be Johnny Stone, I believe, on the Rogue was the deck that we saw on the graphic. Didn't quite catch what Inner is going to be playing from Russia's side. Did you get it?
No, I didn't. I also caught the Rogue, though. So we should probably coordinate
a lack of synergy. Raven would have known which side I was looking at.
I got it to Warrior.
Oh, good job. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Thank you. So Warrior versus Rogue. We've seen Pirate Warriors and we've seen Taunt Warriors.
We've seen a lot of Pirate Warrior today, I feel like. I think slowly, week by week, we've seen Pirate Warrior taking over again.
I agree, yeah.
And I think, you know, Taunt Warrior was lovely for a while when people, like, really flirted with it.
Lovely? Is that your word for the deck?
I mean, it's slightly patronizing compliment. I think that's a perfect phrase for the deck.
I know how much you love the mirror match, so...
Right, yeah. Most skillful game of Hearthstone you can ever play. But I think people experimented with Taunt Warrior for a little bit, and there were even rumblings that it might just be the best deck in the format, etc., etc., etc. I know Pavel, like, really does genuinely like the deck.
Right.
Thinks it's insanely strong. But I think once you start to come to the realization that a lot of your best matchups for the deck are matchups where you mulligan away the quest, that's probably telling you something, right? It's just like the game plan in itself is kind of fundamentally flawed. And I think we've seen people having success with actually just Control Warrior.
Right, I was going to say, that's what that's telling you.
Over the past week or so, and maybe that's just a better plan. If your best matchups are ones where you just throw the quest away and play bad Control Warrior, why don't you just play good Control Warrior?
Cards like N'Zoth have been fitting in quite nicely to Control Warriors recently. It's going to be one of those hard matchups for the Rogue, though. It is going to be the Pirate Warrior, and there's no Glacial Shard in sight, but there is a backstab in Johnny Stone's Rogue, which is a card that we've not seen as often in the Quest Rogue recently, though it seems to be in and out at the moment.
I was thinking about Rogue builds a lot. During my week off, I was thinking about Warlock a lot and what you're supposed to do with it, and Warlock kind of led me down this path of having to think about Rogue a great deal, because those two classes seem to be on collision course with each other. Like, trying to get value out of Warlock felt like it meant trying to queue it into Rogue wherever possible. So I was thinking about Rogue a lot, and I noticed that, like, Rogue was often not getting picked in situations where there might even might be an aggro deck coming up against you, right? You're looking at Druid, and you're saying, okay, I don't pick my Rogue because this could be aggro Druid. So I feel like if you're bringing Quest Rogue to this tournament regardless, you probably should have some sort of anti-aggro tech in it, be it Backstab, be it Hungry Crab, be it whatever you want it to be. Tar Creeper, Tolvir, Stone Shaper, whatever it is, because you need at least some level of confidence to be able to pick your Rogue into a potential aggressive matchup coming the other way.
Look how quickly Inner is playing there. Instant Blood Cell Raider. Again, I mention this every time it happens in this tournament because you don't get many turns that quickly. Usually there's a little bit of discussion every single turn, but there was no discussion there. Just turn 2, Raider, go.
They will have talked about it already, though. Like, during Austria's turn, they will have said to each other, okay, he probably coins Dagger here. In that case, we just play 2-3, right? And then they go, yep, you just play Blood Cell Raider. So then they just snap play it on the turn because they've already worked through every single world.
Austria picking up the patches there. Not feeling great about it. Again, Johnny Stone wants his Glacial Shards. He's got a Shadow Step. Glacial Shard would be pretty perfect. It's just not happening, and getting patches means that he's kind of sacrificing a draw in the same way that we were saying earlier. Going to go ahead and put Firefly on the board before he plays the quest. That's because he can complete the quest with the Flame Elemental if he needs to. It's not important to get the proc on the Firefly.
Not important is the key word, because the quest in general is actually not all that important. Like, at some point, you're going to have to play the quest to end the game, but the most important thing is just getting the board, and at least for half a turn there, Johnny Stone did have the board against Pirate Warrior. He had a 1-2 against nothing. Yes, there was a full 3-mana turn from Inner to come into it, but still, for a brief, fleeting moment, he had board control.
For half a turn, as you said.
Yeah.
Which isn't really going to cut it. Johnny Stone picks up the second Firefly, though, with a Shadow Step as well. He's actually very close to completing this quest. He needs one more. There's one more piece to this puzzle that he needs to pick up, though.
He's going to continue to deal with the board. I love the way that he's playing this so far. Like, at no point is he really turning down his opportunity to do anything, because as you said, Flame Elemental #1 in hand, Firefly gives Flame Elemental #2, Shadow Step gives Flame Elemental #3. That's plenty of mana left over to play the quest whenever he wants to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but you will start to see a lot more of this style of play with Quest Rogue as time goes on, where the quest is almost disregarded for 3 or 4 turns, and then suddenly it just all gets done in 1 or 2 turns anyway.
To clarify for anyone that's confused, you do play the quest as soon as you have the mana to play the quest. If you can possibly use the mana to do something else, something more board-centric, then that's the most important thing to do at the start of the game, especially against these aggressive decks.
Right. Believe it or not, as uninteractive as Quest Rogue is, Hearthstone is still a game that is played on the board in front of you. So the issues that are happening there are first and foremost of your consideration. It doesn't matter what you are. Yeah. You know, you can bring up the most uninteractive decks of all time, whatever your opinion of that is, be it Freeze Mage or Patron Warrior or whatever. They do still care very much about what's being happened on the board in front of them. What's being happened? That's just not words.
What's being happened?
That was all going so well, up until I just started speaking another language entirely.
I think we have seen players in the past, like streamers, like cover their screen with tape and only have their opponent's face on display.
Sure.
I believe that's something we've seen Life Coach do in the past, actually, with Face Shaman. Not that it's ever been that successful.
Don't say Life Coach. Makes me sad.
Why? Life Coach is playing today.
That's true.
Life Coach won. It should make you happy.
That's true. Good job, Miriam.
Okay, well, Bloodcell Cultist looks pretty nice with that Fiery War Axe in hand. I should say Fiery War Axe looks pretty nice with the Bloodcell Cultist in hand, as that was the card that was just picked up.
Yeah, it was actually a reasonable looking turn already, but there's Austria have created a very weird situation here where they're kind of demanding their board be respected.
Yep.
Otherwise, it can be 5/5 time very, very quickly, and Russia don't really have all the tools necessary to be able to do this efficiently. So Fiery War Axe and the upgrade with the Cultist might even be considered overkill in this position, because one of the charges probably has to go into the board state anyway. But no, he is going to do that, and he's going to disregard everything I just said and say, hey, you know what? We just get there this game.
Inner's put tape on his screen. He can only see his opponent's face.
Fair.
That's what's going on right now. Well, Johnny Stone isn't ready to complete the quest yet. He has 1 Flame Elemental in hand. He needs an extra Flame Elemental. Picking up 3 Stone Tusk Spores, that's kind of annoying, actually. He hasn't bounced any of these. He's actually used a Shadow Step already. So if he still had that Shadow Step in hand, he'd be even closer to completing, right? You're counting. What are you counting?
Oh, nothing. I constantly randomly count things while Quest Rogue is happening. Okay. Pay me no mind.
Counting how many lights there in the top left side of this board?
No, I can if you want.
There's 3.
There's 3.
Yeah.
More importantly, we can count the amount of turns that Johnny Stone has left to live, and it is not a great number. There are more lights in the left-hand corner.
Yeah, it's not 3, is it? It might be 3. No, it's not 3. In fact, it's now.
It's 0.
Yeah.
Job done. Russia back on the board. Count these men out at your peril, because they have squared this series back up at 2-2 after looking like they were dead and buried early on.
Yeah, it's going to be the 3rd series today that's gone to the ace match, to the 5th game. Now, we had a reverse sweep earlier. Raven and I had a reverse sweep earlier. It wouldn't be the first time today. Russia could easily come back and win this. In fact, I'd say they're more likely to now, because Austria are going to be sweating a bit.
They will. And I think this has been the story of Russia's route through this. I think their first week was an absolute blowout. Second week, they were put to the test a little bit more. And now this week, they're being taken all the way down to the wire. And this is not a great-looking matchup
not for Johnny, no.
Shaman against the likely Quest Rogue from Stanudachi. Shaman just really lacks any ability to do anything about Quest Rogue. They can't get pressure going fast enough, and they don't have enough tools to repeatedly clear the board afterwards.
Now, there are aggro Shaman decks that exist. There are also tokeny Bloodlust Shaman decks that exist.
Also true.
It is possible for one of these decks to get quite a fast win against the Quest Rogue. However, it's much more likely, as we've been seeing all day today, that it's one of these slower Spirit Echo Shamans.
Seems to be the only shaman we see now, right?
Yeah.
Spirit Echo.
Oh, me and Raven saw a proper elemental.
Raven and I.
Raven and I.
Thank you.
Raven and I saw a proper elemental shaman earlier with Blaze Caller and Fire Plume Harbinger. Harbinger?
Harbinger.
Harbinger.
Yeah.
Firebinger. That's not right.
Firebinger.
So it's not the only shaman deck that exists, but we haven't seen any of these fast shamans.
Okay, interesting. I was who was it that was playing the elemental? Was it South Korea?
Yes, that's right. It was South Korea. Yeah.
Sure.
Which makes sense. Raven was saying that South Korea
brings some wacky nonsense. Yeah, right, exactly. But Argent Squire Flame Tongue.
Okay, here we go. Johnny
Spicy.
Stone going to have a faster deck. Maybe this was the plan. Maybe he's thinking we'll take Shaman. They'll think it's a slower one. They'll pick the Rogue. We'll beat them with our fast Shaman deck.
I mean, at that point, it doesn't matter what they think your Shaman deck is, right? Because they've already committed to their pick. But it might be the reason why they feel relatively secure leaving Shaman into the ace match, and from their perspective, picked it when they knew that Rogue was an option coming back out. Yeah,
So
Squire, Firefly, Flame Tongue. This is gonna put the deeps on pretty quick on Russia.
it's where this backstab in Stanadachi's hand is going to be very relevant, though. Potentially just dealing with a Firefly.
Potentially dealing with a Flame Tongue totem as well, crucially.
Right.
Because that thing sticking around on the board is going to be the difference between, you know, the old Shaman wet noodle fight where they just tickle you with one attack minions over and over again, and those minions actually being a significant attacking threat.
Okay. Maelstrom Portal can be strong against the Rogue. Very situationally if the Rogue decides to play a salty deckhand or something. Though it's not the type of thing that happens very often. Usually deckhand and patches and things are saved until later. Patches being picked up from Johnny Stone, though. This is an aggressive shaman. This is more like the shaman that we used to know before in Goro.
Come back, Totem Golem. We miss you. No, we definitely don't.
No, we don't. We
Never
don't.
come back. Stay away for good. What a horrible card. Jeez. Just a big old lump of idiot stats on turn 2.
Stanadachi there with the Swashbuckler. This is
No comment.
No
Falcone
comment.
just doesn't want to indict himself.
Idiot stats now
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Swashbuckler not common nowadays. Usually replaced, or was that replaced with Firefly way back when?
Sorry, what was the start of the question?
Swashbuckler. It's not a common card in Quest Rogue at all anymore.
Right, it went out when Wisp and Doomsayer and Vanish and all those kind of cards started to come in. Like, unbelievably, Vanish wasn't even originally in the deck. Like, that seems crazy to me, but apparently it wasn't. But yeah, it's really hard to kind of follow the lineage of Quest Rogue as a deck because so many people were like stirring the pot with different things at different times.
Right.
But yeah, Swashbuckler was basically, the realization was like, hey, I don't want to pull patches in the early game. I want to pull it in the late game as a 5/5. Therefore, I'm going to cut as many pirates from my deck as I possibly can.
Flame Tongue Totem dealt 6 damage that turn.
Ouch.
And Patches also helping it out a little bit. Unfortunately, not quite as good as if it came from a deckhand, which was also connecting to the face as well. And now, yeah, okay, Stanadachi having to play his own Patches just to try and get rid of some of this horrific board that's appeared. Doomsayer might help a lot to clear this. In
This
fact,
Doomsayer is actually pretty nutty.
yeah.
What they're scared of in this position is Jade Lightning, so Russia are just having a quick talk about, hey, should we just start doing our quest now instead, because Jade Lightning's such a big punish here. Flame Tongue.
Oh, that'll do it too. Flame Tongue with Maelstrom Portal will allow Johnny Stone to easily get rid of this board.
Yeah. Wow. All right.
Oh my goodness, this really is like old Shaman.
One Jade Claws, please. Stanadachi cannot quite believe his luck right now, but now he's crucially, because he's managed to soak the 7 damage on that on the Doomsayer, he's now only 1 turn away from a Vanish play, but the Vanish isn't even that good because all the minions in play cost 1 right now, so they can all be immediately redumped onto the board after the Vanish comes down.
Yeah, Vanish not so good against these aggressive decks that are full of just cheap cards. Not only that, but vanishing a Firefly and a Flame Elemental just allows Johnny Stone to create another Flame Elemental.
Start finishing the Rogue quest himself as the shaman.
Yeah, well, he wouldn't be far off. So what does Standard do this turn with the 4 mana that he has?
Well, nothing is looking ideal right now, so I imagine the answer to that is Novice Engineer and try and find something better to this. If he picks up Prep, then that can make his Vanish more appealing either this turn or allow him to do it with Tempo on the following turn.
Ooh.
Glacial Shard can get some work done as well. Maybe now he starts bouncing with Ferryman alongside the Shard using the coin.
Shard's pretty nice because it can block off the Flame Tongue Totem. It can prevent Johnny Stone from getting through, although there's nothing that he'd be trading into anyway.
Oh, from doing like the Flame Tongue Totem conga line, you mean?
Conga line, that's the word.
Right.
That's the word.
Yeah, this looks like the line to me. Just start trying to get this quest done now on the Glacial Shard. Mimic Pod available for a bit of extra fuel. But you see one of the reasons why Swashbuckler ended up being cut. You see this Master of Evolution in hand. Like, why does Quest Rogue want a Master of Evolution in any circumstances? It's a 4-mana 5/5 that turns your 5/5 into a 5/5. Like, what is the point of this card?
Yeah, I guess before the quest is complete, it can buff up the Novice Engineer, actually.
Sure.
Doesn't look bad at all.
Yeah.
Actually, it didn't prevent the conga line. It just, conga line went the other way.
Conga line went on the other side, yeah. They just turned around and went back the way they came from.
This might actually be a Master of Evolution this turn. It's either that or... Well, yeah, no, I think it is just Master of Evolution and Glacial Shard. Shadow Step's not bad at all.
He needed a bounce this turn. He needed a bounce this turn so he could play Shard this turn, basically. Because, you know, the play you're suggesting, before this Shadow Step gets drawn, he goes Master of Evolution and Glacial Shard, then his Glacial Shard gets killed.
Yeah.
And what is he doing with his life at that point?
Are there any relevant 3-mana cards? The Warlock card that you saw earlier is 3 mana, right? The 3/8 with Taunt? Or
No,
is
it's
that...
4.
Oh, it's 4 mana.
That card would be bananas.
Yeah.
3 mana 3/8. What the hell?
It was pretty bananas earlier.
Who needs Imp Gang Boss if you've got a 3 mana 3/8 Taunt?
No one. Imp Gang Boss doesn't exist anymore.
Hey, that guy will do.
Except your new Overlords. But yeah, again, Conga Line's kind of annoying here, but Glacial Shard stopping it looks like it'll be more relevant here, except he's going to actually go the other way. And
yeah, freezing the 7 for sure. Like that's just happening at this point.
oh, he's going to freeze both.
Play it. What? What?
Well, according to the board as it currently
According to the
is-
board, it doesn't die. He feels he's in so much of a bad position that he needs to take the risk here.
I think I like it. Obviously, we can see it's going to get very, very punished.
Yeah.
But in terms of this current board, it prevents Johnny Stone from pushing any damage to the face.
I think that decision, whether you think it's right or wrong, and we could all definitely have a massive argument about it, but that decision in the horrible results-oriented world of Hearthstone is going to lose Russia this series.
Wow. It was already looking grim.
It was, yeah. That is slightly harsh, but that moment where Glacial Shard was committed, that is basically the last hope extinguished. There is one more remaining hope, and that is top deck exactly your one remaining Glacial Shard now.
Yeah. And even then, it's still, you're still a long way from winning this game. You've got 13 health, and there's a lot of damage on the board. That deckhand does not actually have charge, but putting up a 5/5 or 2 now wouldn't really do it. Youthful Brewmaster also isn't going to do it. Does Johnny Stone just vanish? Sorry, Stone actually just vanish here, just to buy himself an extra turn.
I think they know, though. Like, they're just so resigned at this point. The thing from below that they've sent back even only costs 2 at this point. It will be free by the time the Healing Totem and the Flame Tongue come back down. They know this is not a long-term plan, and I think, you know, that play, obviously, when you have all the full information and caster vision and everything else, like, committing the Glacial Shard there looks a bit foolish, but in that position, he just felt like he had to take the risk.
Johnny Stone with the second Firefly after the vanish genuinely looks closer to completing the quest here than Stanadachi is. This is just unbelievable. Such a close series, but Austria, with their 0-2 record in the Hearthstone Global Games so far, toppling Russia, of all teams to get their first win against.
Who goes there?
You're very quiet, Soto.
I am, yeah. Sorry about that. I do tend to take these things to heart. I'm a terrible loser, even when I'm not actually involved in the game. I have, like, no vested interest in Russia whatsoever, apart from I really like Stanadachi, I like Pavel, and I picked them to win, and I'm still miserable because they're losing.
It's a good job you're not competing.
It really is, yeah. Why do you think I stopped?
Okay, well, Stanadachi's going to go ahead and put 2 taunts on the board. Great.
Austria is going to draw a 0-mana 5/5. I know which side I'm on right now.
Just
let's go, Austria.
stalling,
Come on, you got
oh, wow,
this.
U-turn cloak. I was supposed to be rooting for Austria here, Sottle. I was rooting for Austria just to counter you and also support the underdog. You can't switch sides now.
All right, no, that's fair. But now, even from this position, I think it's even too late for the one remaining Glacial Shard draw now. The Vanish has been used. You know, maybe they could have hung on and gone Glacial Shard into Vanish, and then, or, you know, Vanish first, then Glacial Shard afterwards, just to have potentially that tempo 5/5 on the board for the quest coming down the next turn. All kinds of things were possible for a turn or two, even with the disaster of them losing that minion that they have been bouncing. But now, even though they are at 3 or 4 out of the shards, and there is that one remaining shard left in the deck, there's just not enough time for them to find an answer now. And that is going to be it. Austria pull one of the biggest upsets of the tournament so far. You can see what it means to them all. Hugs all around. There's a happy dance going on in the background.
Ah, that warms the heart.
King dancing up a storm. Wife coach over the moon. And you can see exactly what it means, as you said. One of the biggest upsets of the tournament so far. Austria upsetting my favorites for the tournament, many people's favorites in general. Russia are going to go down now to a 2-1 record.
Well, Game King saying to me earlier that he feels that they need to get lucky. They did get a little bit lucky, but they played that series incredibly well. Even down to the pre-game that they lost, that was very, very close to getting that crazy lethal with the Potion of Madness.
And I like their deck building decisions as well. You know, I went on record, you know, advocating for this style of Paladin, which is just much more aggressive, gets the job done. It got the job done. It was a hell of a top deck in the end to get it done, but it got there. And then the much more aggressive Shaman than we've seen from anyone else paid huge dividends for Austria in that position. Any other Shaman deck would have got absolutely dumpstered by Quest Rogue, but they went with the aggressive build, something that we haven't seen for weeks. I don't think we've seen it since, what, week 1 of HGG?
No, it's been a long time.
Like, in absolute insanity, came out and just blew the Quest Rogue away.
But we did say it was possible. We saw the matchup. We knew it was unlikely that the Shaman would win, but there you go. They had exactly the Shaman that they needed for that specific matchup. I believe that we have an interview with Johnny Stone.
Nice.
Hey, Johnny, can you hear me?
Yes, hi guys.
Hey.
We are happy, very relieved.
Very happy.
All right, job done. No further questions. Let's go.
You guys look very, very happy. How are you feeling now about your chances in the Hearthstone Global Games? You've still got a very good chance. Are you guys feeling a little bit more confident now?
Yeah, we have 2 more games, and as far as I know, if we win both of those, we are basically in.
Yeah,
even if we lose one and we win one, we might still have a chance, but we will try to win both, so yeah, that's the plan at least.
So, Aggro Shaman, talk to me about that. What is that about? What makes a man bring Aggro Shaman to Hearthstone Global Games?
Well, last week when we played, we had some issues that our ace deck was too easily countered by aggression. So we thought, go back to 2016, what counters Pirate Warrior and aggressive decks the best? Well, Aggro Shaman is pretty good, I've heard.
Did you even consider like Quest Rogue being an ace deck when you did that? Because if you had any other Shaman, you would have got completely dumpstered by Quest Rogue, right? So like Aggro Shaman.
Yeah, that was obviously also a point that we thought that most Shamans nowadays are like Control, Jade, slower versions, and the aggressive Shaman is a curveball, and they won't expect it. So that was also.
I want to talk for just a moment about Game King's Priest, and I want to know how all in you were on that strategy at the end with the Potion of Madness. We were getting very excited about it.
We had one turn where the Power Shield, I believe, was lead
Yes,
first.
yeah, we saw it, yeah.
And we thought, you know, if we can stall one more turn, maybe we can top the Power Shield and then enough, but turned out that he was able to suicide his maneuver, and we couldn't go for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. The game was super weird. Like, our draw was super awkward.
It was really bad.
I think the shield came just 1 turn too late or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, congratulations once again.
guys.
Go and celebrate your win together.
We will.
Well played, guys. Congrats.
Awesome. That's just fantastic to see. I love it, especially when the team is together and they're high-fiving, they're hugging. Wife coach was jumping up and down in the background. Just fantastic.
I could tell. You're like such a genuine empathy, like connecting with other human
glee
beings
right
from
now,
Falco.
okay?
He's just such a lovely guy. Like, he genuinely just likes seeing people happy. It's awesome.
All right, now way back when, game number 2, Paladin versus Shaman, and this is the game where Zigantag just kept picking up the aggression over and over again.
I still can't believe they won this game. It's absurd.
Right, out of damage, picks up True Silver Champion. Out of damage, you get double consecration. Let's go. That's this double consecration right here.
Yeah, which makes you question, I was talking about whether they could have gone for that earlier board control push with the Volcano turn, but because this double consecration turn ended up happening anyway, it didn't really matter when they would have gripped the board, right? Because the double consecration would have put a stop to it anyway.
Sure.
So maybe that's even an overstatement on my part that the earlier Volcano could have got the job done for them.
There was a lot of erupting volcanoes here, though, as both were played one after the other.
Yep.
I still believe it's the first time I've seen that. You've seen it a few times already.
I have.
But just 30 damage, clear everything. I like it. Quite slow, though.
It is.
Boom, 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 boom.
Have you ever done Volcano while there's like a big board including a Frothing Surfer and an Armor Smith?
Right.
That's delightful.
Yeah. All right, still the same game. This was a long one, and there you go. There was the top deck at the end. Sunkeeper Tarim, the last possible turn, we believe, that would have been lethal. Later on, it still would have been good as a defensive tool. But allows very nice cleaning up the one taunt and then pushing all of that damage to the face.
Absolutely absurd win. Picking up the 2-0 at that point, and it looked like a formality, if nothing else, that Austria were going to win the series. But then this climb started again. This was the hand, the triple Divine Spirit in a Fire Potion of Madness hand. There was a Mana Worm on the opponent's board just before this that would have represented lethal with a Power Word Shield draw.
Yeah.
The Power Word Shield just ended up coming one turn too late to stop what would have been one of the most spectacular lethals we have ever seen in competitive Hearthstone.
Right, I've seen it on the ladder before, but not in a tournament like this. That would have just, especially as the third win in the series, it would have been a fantastic finish, right?
There was a whole deck built around it for a while, right?
Yeah.
You abusing like the Ginny,
yeah.
You bug glitch, if you want to look at it that way, like weird stuff happening when Ginny's in play. But seeing it happen in competitive play just purely with Potion of Madness on a Mana Worm would have been insane. And this is where the march back began. It was a fairly one-sided game against a Quest Rogue, followed by a fairly one-sided game against a Quest Rogue.
Yeah, well, the Shaman was just aggressive enough. Vanish did nothing to it. Vanishing away 0 mana 5/5s doesn't really have a lasting effect. And just a fantastic win from Austria. What another great series to end the day. 3 series have gone to the ace match today.
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out that last game as well. Standard actually snap called the Quest on one. We've seen so many other Quest games happen where it's been like, okay, this is an aggressive board development kind of deck. I'm going to coin Dagger. I'm going to answer their threats. I'm going to backstab this.
Yeah.
I'm going to play my Quest later. They just queued up, and Shaman went Firefly on 1, and Russia went, all right, Shaman, sweet, we got all the time in the world, and just played Quest on 1, and they just did not realize how much more aggressive that was going to get over the next couple of turns.
As we had a very quick look at the bracket there, Austria have kind of made everything a little bit closer together now. Whereas if Russia won, it would have separated them, putting them right at the top with their 3-0, and Austria right at the bottom with a 0-3. It's all kind of squeezed in a little bit close together. That group's gotten very interesting.
And I know Russia will be disappointed as well. As I mentioned, Pavel has very much grown into his spirit as the world champion and the man that everyone wants to beat. They are all very proud players who kind of compete with expectations they've set of themselves. So now that there are other countries in this tournament that have started to go 3-0, they would have all been looking right, all right, guys, we have to go 3-0 as well. We have to keep up with all these other guys. So dropping the ball now and dropping back to 2-1, I think they will just be a little bit disappointed with themselves.
Apologies, I said that 3 games went to the ace match today. It actually turns out 4 games went to the ace match, with only the first game of the day, first series of the day, ending with 3-1. What a close series of games today in the Hearthstone Global Games. Have you had a good day, Sottle?
I've had a fantastic day. It could have been rounded off any better by Austria tearing Russia a new derriere from here to Red Square.
I've been waiting for that one all day.
You have, haven't you?
Yeah. Only because you warned me. I would have had no idea what you meant otherwise. Wonder if anyone back home will.
Probably not.
Tomorrow, we're going to start off the day with Belgium versus Denmark, followed by Finland versus Israel, and Belarus versus Germany.
Yeah, and then moving on, Brazil versus Sweden, big game, lots of heavy hitters coming into that one, and then Netherlands versus Peru. Of course, Netherlands led by Thijs, not quite the spectacular performance that we might have expected to see by the likes of Tyler and Thijs and company, but still in with a good shout up against Peru, probably one of the big, the underdogs of their group as well.
Yeah, we'll give them some time. They're certainly not out of the competition just yet. But that is all from us today. Come back again tomorrow afternoon for more Hearthstone Global Games. We'll see you then.